Great. Okay,
We're
I'm
ready.
gonna just get to this script. Welcome, everybody. This is Hillary Hedges Rayport, and I'm chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission. So I'm just gonna go through and make sure that everyone's here and can hear me. We have commissioners Mickey Rowland,
Here.
Angus McLeod,
Here.
Tom Montgomery,
Here.
Georgia Raisman,
Here.
Ben Norman,
Here.
David Silver.
Here. Morning.
We have our staff, Holly Bacchus.
Present.
Thank you, staff liaison. And we have our guest, Ann Chutzpah from the Nantucket, from Housing Nantucket.
Good, Anne. Thank you. Yes, I'm here.
And I think we're being joined also by Mary Bergman from the Preservation Trust.
Yep.
And Dawn Holgate from the Select Board.
Here. Thank you.
Hi, Dawn. And we are expecting a couple other people. Clement is joining. She said she'd be a little late. Susan Handy is also going to join, but at 10:30. So today we are meeting remotely by Zoom because of the pandemic. We will feature public comment. If any of the public is here, we'll announce when you may speak. The meeting is being recorded. All attendees are participating by video conference. Be sure not to screen share your computer and know that anything you do will be potentially captured. And remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking and speak clearly so that we can have accurate minutes. Please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. And every vote in the meeting will be taken by roll call vote. So to start off, since we have Anne with us, I would like to ask if I can make a modification to the agenda so that we discuss preservation and sustainability, livability right after we approve the minutes. Is that all right with everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Great. So first, if I could ask if there's any discussion or about the minutes of our last meeting. Tom, I can read lips. It looks like you said I moved to approve the minutes.
I approve the minutes as submitted.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Second.
And Angus second. So to approve the minutes, Mickey,
Aye.
Angus,
Aye.
Tom, Georgia,
Aye.
Ben.
I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I'm gonna abstain.
Oh, okay, thank you, David.
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. Thank you very much. So now we're going to turn to the discussion of preservation, sustainability, livability. I did speak with Anne, and she is kindly joining us to be part of this discussion about ways preservation and reuse of housing might overlap. So just give me a moment. I'm going to navigate to the part of the packet where we talk about that. Which, okay, here we go.
I think that's page 14.
Okay. Thank you
Madam
very much.
Chair,
Yes.
Clement is just arrived.
Okay. If the minutes could show that Clement joined at 10:06. Okay, so this is in your packet, but just for the record, I'm going to just let everybody know that we voted and decided at our February 19th meeting to do a little bit of work on themes of sustainability and reuse and salvage in preservation. Some of this is about salvaging old buildings and salvaging historic interiors. So we do have historic, very old interiors, you know, 18th century interiors that are removed from buildings. And is there a way that we could support keeping those important building parts on the island and seeing them reused in other homes, and maybe even, documenting them, making any notations that we might make about them for academic purposes, and keeping track of where they go. Then we also have issues of some historic structures that are approved by the HDC for demolition, which does happen. Could we have these structures reused? Could we salvage building parts, more than interiors, but actual building materials from these old buildings? And then we have the issue of older homes that, can't really be considered contributing structures at this point. In some cases, they're intrusions. In some places, they're just nice buildings that, that the HDC approved demolition of. And could we support some kind of reuse of these buildings? I think it's consistent with ideas of preservation generally, not necessarily on Nantucket, but certainly nationally, about just livability, reusing what we have, reusing these old buildings. And it's also about good citizenship. We don't want to see these going into the landfill, perfectly good plumbing fixtures that are just the wrong style going into the landfill. So the idea here is that could we have kind of a coalition where we show civic leadership, and maybe put together a plan where we have a vested interest, and other groups on the island also have a vested interest. So I spoke with Anne a bit about this, and Anne, since you're here, I'd love to turn the floor over to you to talk about what you know about building reuse. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Hillary. I really appreciate this opportunity. My name's Ann Cuspa. I'm the Executive Director of Housing Nantucket, and we have been around since 1994. We're a private nonprofit. One of our primary programs that we use to serve our mission, which is to preserve and provide equitable housing solutions for Nantucket's year-round community. One of our primary programs is our affordable rental program, and we have 38 rental properties and scattered sites around the island, many of which were created through our house recycling program, in which a private property owner donates the structure to Housing Nantucket. We pay the move costs, usually through grants or through private fundraising, put it on land that had historically been given to us by the town to develop for affordable housing through their RFP process, and then rented at below market rates to income qualified year-round residents. As we've gotten more experience with house moving and house recycling, we are very particular about the types of endeavors that we are willing to undertake. And as years go by, also, we're getting a lot more calls from people who would like to demolish the structures on their properties. So we have a very narrow set of criteria that we will even really look at the structures, even though they might be quite nice. What we have found is if the structure is greater than 22 feet wide, it cannot be moved over the road without being cut. And once you start getting into cutting the structure for our affordable housing purposes, it just doesn't work for us to even really pursue it at all. Just it's a lot of work, and then also cutting and money and then the integrity of the building long term and the manageability of it. We've just opted out of that. So that's kind of where we are with house recycling. Hillary, when we spoke, you asked how many of these calls do we get every year, and I think I told you about 2 per month. I mean, we get a lot of calls, which is great. We have to decline a lot of the calls just because we don't have the land in the areas that the houses are being offered, because sometimes you can move a house that's greater than that certain width if it's in the same vicinity without having to cut it. So that's one thing. We also, if we can't use the structure, we'll try to find somebody else who would buy that structure from us in that vicinity, because that's just, it's logistically, it's a lot easier to keep the dwelling in that one area. So we'll try to then sell it to this third party, who I have a list of buyers in the wings, I call them, people over the years who found out about our program. And then when I get a call for a house that's, say, in Cisco, in that area might not be the best example, because the land in that area is so expensive, people really aren't taking recycled dwellings out there. But I might call somebody who had expressed an interest for, say, a cottage in Cisco. If I got a call from someone who wanted to donate one, then I could try to like broker that and try to come up with a price that worked for the buyer. And then also it's kind of dependent on what the donor can write off in general. So, I have to kind of figure out a price that works for us both, and then facilitate that move. That third party does pay for all the moving and whatnot. So that's my 2-minute description. I'll leave it to you to direct me however else you'd like me to talk about our programs.
And I have one question. Thank you for that overview. I mean, what about the, do you ever have people interested in building parts, or is it really just whole houses?
People do try to give us building parts, and they do call us with those. The storage constraints that we have are limited, very limited. And what we have found, like, we'll accept building materials, and then they end up sitting in our basement for a very long time, and they get moldy, and we don't really have a good way to find a recipient for that sort of thing.
Okay, Tom?
I have a question for Ann. What type of parts of houses are you talking about? Windows, doors, stairs, balusters, railings, that kind of thing?
Yep, fixtures, toilets. We got a lot of toilets. You need a toilet, just things like that. Extra building, flooring, people with tiles, water heaters, appliances we can use in our own rental units, but that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have another question, and what about like some truly old structures, like old outbuildings? Do they ever are they more or less desirable? Do they come your way?
Well, I think with the doors, things like that has been offered to us, and we used to take it when we had more space. But as I say, like, we can't use it for our purpose, which is the affordable housing purpose. So, when we were accepting, say, really cool doors, which we appreciated for their aesthetic beauty and historic, significance, but then we just were finding, or say a window, then we've got to like build around these windows that we have, and it just wasn't possible for us. So then we ended up just not using them. So we just declined from there. And I think people just don't give them to us anymore.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, so where to go with this? I have a proposal, which I'd like to just put out there, and maybe we can deliberate and also brainstorm a little bit about different things to think about. So it seemed to me that this really requires a business plan. to understand the volume of material that we're talking about, the potential demand for the material from the different streams, affordable housing, but also recycling, off-island potential streams, where there's greater demand for these fixtures, maybe somewhere else. Could we find a partner? The benefit to the town in terms of cost. And then, what are the different components that we would need? Like, could we find a partner? Maybe a partner in the trades who has land that would see this as a corporate responsibility initiative. What kind of staffing would be required? It just seemed like, if I was going to take this on, that's where I would start. So I reached out to Dominic Golding, who is the faculty administrator for the Worcester Polytechnic Institute students that come every year to Nantucket, and they do about 7 projects every year on Nantucket, and they're analytical, but the whole point of this program is that they're supposed to be cross-disciplinary. Anyway, I described this and he was really enthusiastic and very much welcomed a proposal. So what that entails is that the Historical Commission would come up with a 1-page description of the student project as we conceived it. I would think that given how this touches other areas, we would work probably with, certainly with PLUS, with Housing Nantucket, perhaps other, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, I don't know, but we would, we would organize it with other folks involved. And then give it to Dominic, give whatever supporting information we have to Dominic, and he would take it to the students. The students choose what they want to work on. But then the team would be assigned, they would start looking at it in August. They would come out to the island in the fall, assuming all stays well with travel ability. They would need a place to work. So this would mean, we'd have to find them the right place to work, which could be, they worked at PLUS in the past. Maybe they could also camp out at other places. And then they would have a proposal in December. So that, I think that would be a good way to get this really started. It's a lot of research and a lot of work. And I wondered what you all thought about that.
Hillary, I think it's brilliant.
Good, Georgia.
I do.
Want to elaborate?
Well, I think it's great to have them focusing on a project that we need to have done, but which would attract a multidisciplinary group of kids with different angles that each of them could jump into. We need to have this done, and there's no immediate group on the island that would say, yeah, we've got a lot of extra time to do this. We've got a lot of extra personnel to do this. And if I were a student or a graduate student in that area, I would think, and I was interested in both sustainability, historic preservation, materials management, bingo, it just hits a lot of buttons.
Okay, Tom, I see you have a hand up.
Are you looking to have Ann's group or someone from us kind of be the go-between here?
Well, I think we should hear from Holly about what her perspective would be, with PLUS, and Anne about how they would like to be involved. But this is something where the students are going to figure out what their advice is, and then we would help them navigate to the right people to interview and shepherd them along. I think that's how it would work.
So my understanding, sorry. So my understanding,
Holly, go ahead.
the WPI students work with our assistant town manager on different projects. And there's, depending on their school year, they have X amount of kids, students, I should say. And there's different groups that are their sponsors or who they reach out with. I'll tell you, out of about 8 different groups, I think they had this past year virtually, there was 3 different groups that I was involved with, whether if I was a direct staff member trying to help out, or I was answering questions from a preservation perspective or resiliency perspective. So going the WPI route, I think would be very beneficial for the town. They come up with some great studies for input, provided we get support from the powers that be, town administration, and the select board on that. I don't see a problem. I think it would be very beneficial for the town in general, to see how that goes. And I know the DPW with their recycling coordinator has been working on this type of thing, and I think to a certain perspective, which could probably grow. So there has been some internal discussion about how we could coordinate different things. So I can tell you that. But having WPI involved for a project would be obviously very beneficial, and they would be the folks that would do exactly what you're talking about, Hillary, coming up with a quote unquote business plan on how that would function. In the meantime, I think the town has been working pretty good, DPW, of trying to kind of promote that recycling. Maybe how that could work out with helping with Housing Nantucket. It sounds like having a place to facilitate where people can bring things to, how people can obviously, what incentives could be for people to donate versus putting it into the landfill, those type of things. So it's a big brainstorming aspect, and I think preservation can definitely bring a component to it. So it looks like we're starting in the right direction.
Hillary, I have a question.
Yes.
Is there
comment.
could you set up any kind of a tax credit for donating partial, like I donated the windows or I donated the doors? I mean, I think once again, that could be part of the WPI's research to figure out, but I think we need some kind of incentive for people to do this.
Yeah.
And Anne, can I ask Anne a question? Does anybody know that they can come by and look at your basement and pick things out, windows and stuff?
Yes, we post on Facebook's consignment. We do that when we have some items. We don't have a dedicated staff person. It does take a lot of time to coordinate all of that. So it's not part of any of we have a 3-person staff, and it's a lot that we're doing there for affordable housing purposes, so this is kind of like one of those ancillary word of mouth, and then occasionally we'll post something good on the consignment page and then get a little more activity.
Great, thank you.
And I'll just summarize. I did speak with Anne about the tax credits, and people can take a tax credit, but they can only deduct what they sell the house for. And of course, most of the cost is the moving and the preparation. So it's not such a big deduction that it's motivating. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because as you can see, I put a couple ideas in the packet that I forgot to mention. We might find, and I think we should just turn this over to WPI, assuming that they want to work on it. It's up to them. And let them come back and tell us. We can just tell them what we've observed and what we know, and they'll kind of figure out how to advise us. But a couple observations: the tax credit is not so financially motivating, but so the question is, could we manufacture some financial motivation? And I included in the packet information from the town of Lexington. They passed, which is interesting for a number of different reasons, but they passed a surcharge on demolitions at their October 2020 town meeting. It's calculated based on a square foot charge, and it's creating funding for affordable housing because they have a worsening problem with gentrification, demolition of modest 3-bedroom homes that sell for under $1 million, and creation on spec of $1.5 million homes. So they decided to go this route to create this fund. And I would propose that WPI consider if there needs to be a financial incentive, that this might be an incentive that could be waived if the home were salvaged. So then suddenly you would go from, oh, I can take a $20,000 tax deduction, which of course, doesn't reduce, it reduces your taxes, whatever your tax rate is, times 20,000. So it's quite small, versus I have this, this fee that I have to pay. And if I figure out how to recycle or salvage my home, I don't have to pay it. So that's one. The other thing that is a reality that works against salvage and recycling is that it just takes time. People want to get their structures up. And we currently have a town demo delay law. Well, first of all, the Historic District Commission can decide not to issue a demo permit for any structure that they can find to be contributing and worth saving. But then there's a demo delay that I think it applies to all structures, and it's 60 days. And that's why you see these houses advertised and everything. And I thought it was interesting, just last week, there was a letter in the paper thanking the land bank because they were able to get a free home, and they said it took 6 months. So, would part of this, to really make this work and to get buy-in, I know it's inconvenient for people, but we're not just individuals, right? We're part of a community. And if we had a longer demo delay because a structure was considered preferably reused, then perhaps that would give us a higher rate of reusing some of these, or salvaging these structures. Could a demo delay be put on the interior, on an interior demolition? I don't even know if that's legal, but I think it's an interesting question to ask. Holly's shaking her head. So I know it has never been done, but I think we should ask town council if towns have the ability to even entertain something like that. Dawn, I know you're multitasking this morning, you let me know that, but is this sort of study something, this is a study that would, I think, best involve multiple departments, because we really should be looking at all of the streams, I think. So is this something that the select board would like to see happen?
I think it would be a worthy thing to discuss, certainly. I'm a little bit worried about bandwidth to actually institute something like this, but I think space is a big issue. And I have concerns about, some of the materials that you'd really want to save and preserve probably have lead paint issues and so forth. And that's a whole nother hurdle of how to manage those. But I think it's definitely worth pursuing a discussion with WPI and seeing comparing it with what other projects they might have wanted to work on this year. So I'm happy to talk to Libby about it further.
Sure.
Need to be collaboration from a few town departments.
Okay.
Anne has her hand up.
Yes, Anne.
Thank you. Just a couple thoughts on that, the WPI, our experiences with the Worcester Polytech. We've worked with them a number of times, and the way that we've seen the most success working with the students is when we've got like an idea that's percolating, and this is like the nudge that pushes us to actually implement this idea. I think it's really important to have realistic expectations, because these aren't consultants, they're students. And in fact, they're students with engineering and mathematical training. So it's a leap to get them over to, for us, the human services or historic, it's kind of outside of their world. So it's not like you're hiring somebody and they're going to deliver you this finished product that's amazing and you're just going to be able to go. it does require a lot of shepherding, a lot of time, a lot of interacting, because you're really teaching them how to do all. They have not had professional jobs. You know, that's what I've learned, that I have to have like realistic expectations of these kids. They're 20 years old, you know? So that's one thing. I liked that idea about the cross-disciplinary, especially the partnership with the town. And I don't want to step outside of my lane, but you know, if we're rethinking the take it or leave it and things at the recycling facility, like maybe it can happen there, and maybe WPI can help with that business model. So maybe it's a proposal like how at the Jetties Beach, you know, you've got like a restaurant, someone bids to manage that business in the town, you know, and so maybe that could be a structure where it actually is a business going in there to operate that, because you know, just thinking, I don't know where it would end up, but those would be kind of ideas. As for the space, we have space at Housing Nantucket, so if we're going to partner here, we could host in a good space for the students if they needed a landing spot.
Okay, great. I see Dawn has her hand up again.
I was just thinking about the fact that we are starting to get interest from from Waste Options, among others, who are interested in taking over the whole landfill contract, which expires in 2025. And it would be very good to incorporate something like this now, in terms of them having it on their radar to add it to their proposal, essentially.
Okay.
So if this was something that got developed over the summer as something that could be incorporated into that, it would be worthwhile, I think, with Graham and Rob's support.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we stay so the genesis of this idea is how can we salvage historic interiors and reuse them on Nantucket? And while we're doing that, how can we think about the broader questions of recycling buildings? And I think that intersects with the landfill, obviously, because these buildings, if they're not recycled, they go to the C&D building, and there's some whole calculus of economics around that. I'm a little concerned if this, like, you know, becomes my landfill project, you know, we're going to lose this genesis of the idea that's our initiative.
I mean, in terms of there being a facility that could house these things. I mean,
yes,
I think you really need
yeah,
a warehouse, and you probably
yes,
need a dedicated staff person. So
yes,
it's a fairly big undertaking to do it properly.
absolutely. And I could see, you know, with the students saying, you know, talk to a bunch of people, like, is there somebody like a Toscana or a Marine Home that would like to offer space because it's a corporate responsibility initiative for them? Or is this best done at the landfill? You know, get the information and weigh the different options. Angus, did you have your hand up earlier?
Pretty much everything that I was going to say has been mentioned. For me, being in the building trade for decades, and being a part of the work going on in old houses, and having old houses that we when we make alterations, want to use as many old parts as possible. We've had to really harvest most of those from Boston, because there isn't a facility on Nantucket, and space really is the issue. Is a warehouse where these items can go to, that people can come to and easily find them and pick them up, or drop them off. The easiest thing would be at the DPW, where you know you throw the usable stuff into the dump, and you bring the recyclable stuff to the building, you know, like the take it or leave it or something. And I appreciate Don's foresight in thinking about incorporating that into the facility. as part of what the next person is walking into for managing that. But I think the initial sort of study and legwork, all that can become clear. So I think it's a great idea to ask these students to make that first leap, and we move forward, as we learn with each piece.
Okay, thank you, Angus. Tom?
Yeah, this may be putting the cart before the horse because this is just in the preliminary stages, but we're all talking about space here and space there. Augie Ramos's property is the thing that comes to my mind. There is a lot of stuff just like this there right now. The old steamboat wharf there, and he's got all kinds of land there. If it was cleaned up a little bit, we might be able to come up with a little spot there where this was this could be done. Just an idea.
That's great. So that's the sort of thing we would tell, if we got this to be a WPI project, that we would suggest that they consider, and, they could evaluate all these things. All right. So, well, I'm trying to figure out where to go from here. So I'm hearing support. I'm hearing support for this being more than just historic interiors, to really kind of do a project that would include the whole stream of building resources, and where it should go. The next step is to get a proposal to Dominic, and I'm feeling a little unsure, and I need some guidance, I think, from Dawn, because what I was thinking was that if everybody liked this idea, I would ask for a motion that we should write this proposal. And then I heard well, the assistant town manager has to get involved. And, what I heard from Dominic is, I'd love to do it, give me a proposal. But, I just want to be sensitive to the right way to do this. Anne?
I thought his proposals were due, I want to say in June. Did you get a date from him?
He did ask for it in May.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess he probably asked for it in May because he needs it in June. That's possible. Does someone want to make a motion on this, or is there any further discussion, Dawn?
I was just going to say, I think Holly can maybe elaborate a little bit more how these proposals come in. I am not 100% familiar. It seems to me from what she had said that you probably do need to go through the assistant town manager in terms of putting together the proposal. Holly, can you elaborate on how it's been done in the past?
Yeah, I don't know the specifics, but I know when the town is involved with a WPI project, the town is through the assistant town manager is the one who, kind of puts it out. But I also do know that there have been nonprofits that have been involved, like the NHA is one where they actually facilitated their own project with WPI, obviously, and has with Housing Nantucket. So I think maybe we want to figure out, is this just going to be a spoke proposal, for instance, just from the historical commission, from just a historic perspective, or since we're branching out with this conversation to how this would be an island-wide perspective, we're bringing in Housing Nantucket, we're talking about what could happen with the landfill. It almost sounds like to me that maybe the proposal is more of a generic, because I will say that the WPI students did work a little bit on sustainability last year as part of with their resiliency perspective. The town has been looking at how to incorporate sustainability from multiple different levels, and this would be, maybe a spike off of that, if you will. So I really don't know, but I also understand that, Hillary, you want to kind of get a direction on where to go. I don't know, maybe that's a question to bring up to Dominic on how he sees what would be beneficial for his students. I don't know how many students he has, if that depending on how big the project is, if this could be a multiple. I really don't know on that regards, but
Okay.
I know the town, if we're going to be a part of it, that the assistant town manager is
Right.
usually involved. So.
Well, what about this, Holly? What if, so we have this idea of, the stuff the historical commission is interested in. So we can write that up and then we can have placeholders and get input from other groups if they want to be a part of it. And if they don't, then we'll just do historic interiors and leave it at salvaging historic materials and leaving them on the island. And if everybody else wants to, we want to have this be bigger, they want to participate, then it can grow. I just don't want this. The historic stuff is what is part of our commission and our, what we really care about, because we're losing these materials that are going to the dump, and they're, 200-year-old windows and doors and beams and things that we want to save. So I just want to make sure that we capture that and make some action on that. Yes, Angus.
I just want to reaffirm what you're saying. Since the NHA and Housing Nantucket have enlisted the help of WPI along the way, we could, seems like we could do that independently as well. And as you say, as the other parties are interested and want to participate, or we have something that reaches out to a wider group and it's time for that involvement, we expand.
Okay. All right. And ultimately it's up to WPI. They might get a proposal and take only part of it. The students might not want to work on it. So it really is, up to them. So I guess I would entertain a motion then that I would work with Holly and Anne to come up with what Dominic needs, and Holly would, work with the assistant town manager. Does that sound
So moved.
okay? Second. Georgia, thank you. Okay, so all in favor, Tom is saying aye. David Silver. I didn't hear you, David. All right, we'll come back to
Yes.
David because we can't. Oh, David?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Spotty internet connection, but I'm in favor of the motion.
Okay,
Aye.
thank you, David. Susan?
Aye.
Clement?
Aye.
Mickey? Ben?
Aye.
And I am also an aye. And Angus and Georgia, are you in favor of your motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, terrific. And thank you so much. You're welcome to hang out, but we're going to move on to some other topics at this point.
Thank you. This is really exciting, and I really admire your efforts here. And it's important. So thank you.
Thank you, Anne. We feel the same way about working with you. Thanks.
Thanks.
And thank you for everything you're doing. My goodness. Okay. Going back to the next thing on our agenda. Excellent news, everybody. We did receive our grant from the Massachusetts Historical Commission.
Yay, yay, good, and well done,
Yeah.
Holly.
Yeah. So we're really thrilled about this. Dawn, I don't know if you had heard that or noticed that in the packet. I'm kind of burying the headline because we worked so hard to get that done, and we really appreciate the support of the town. I just can't understate how, or overstate rather, how exciting it is to be kicking off a island-wide survey of our historic structures. It's so needed, so long overdue. And I'm really proud of our commission that, in just a year, we've, gotten these funds and gotten the support of the MHC. We received the third largest grant in the past couple of years. They actually increased the amount of the grant to $22,500. I'm not sure why, so it'll be interesting to talk to them about why they felt we needed more money. We have a little bit of housekeeping that I think Holly is going to take care of as far as some follow-up information. But Holly, do you want to just brief the committee on what we should do next?
So we do have a document that our select board chair will be signing And then once we receive the actual grant package from MHC, and we'll go over the specifics, we'll also be creating the RFP at that time. So procurement, the chief procurement officer, our finance director for the town is already in the loop, understands that this is a big thing for us. And I know he'll be willing to work with me to generate that RFP so we can get that going. So next steps will be waiting to hear back more from MHC. And yeah, this is good stuff. Very, very, very happy. Thank you all for guiding on this whole thing. So.
Okay, terrific. Well, we'll work on that. I want to be first out of the gate because I feel like there are lots of people who are looking for all competing for the best consultants. And I want to make sure that people aren't tied up with other projects when we get our RFP out, and that it's going to be a really hard work, and the quality of the product will be dependent on the quality of the person we're able to hire through the RFP process. So look forward to more updates about that. And Dawn, I would love if you could make a committee report to the board, thanking them for their support. Thank you for your support. But I think it's really exciting news for the community.
Yep, I'd be happy to do that next week.
Great, thank you. So the next item is about the reviews of sidewalks. So in the packet was the letter that we sent to the Massachusetts Historical Commission about the sidewalks. I'm happy to share that the Phelan family participated in our discussion. They own the parcel of land that's probably the most important parcel for creating a path along Pleasant Street, where we really desperately need a path. And I suggested to the family that they might Zoom into the tree advisory committee meeting that happened yesterday. I didn't listen to the meeting, I haven't watched it, but I did get a follow-up note from Sam Phelan, who owns the house in the field, that he did Zoom in and has gotten those discussions with the DPW and the tree committee back on track to try to get a path on his property that they can live with, that saves the trees, because the plan that's on the table takes the trees down. And we noted in our letter that we thought that was the loss for the community, and that the grading that would be needed in the ivy patch would also be a negative impact. The family has some interest in restoring that to the majestic garden that it once was. So we've offered to continue to help and support them. We've encouraged them to work with the town. We've made pointers about how they can navigate that, and I hope that we get a really good outcome there. I did notice, Dawn, that next week the select board will be getting updates on all of these projects. And I have to say, I feel like this commission is being pushed aside by the town. I don't know how else to say it. I'd love to have a discussion about that. And I'm wondering if, I have something to do with that. And maybe I'm not the best person to communicate with the town on these topics. I think you all know how hard I work and how passionate I am about this. And I know I enjoy your support, but if I can't be effective at talking with the DPW, if I can't have a dialogue with the director of the DPW, then maybe it needs to be somebody else. So I did invite the director of the DPW to come to our meeting and talk with us. He declined. So I'd like to just sort of step back and maybe hear from the commission on this. Or if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, Georgia.
I'm going to stick my head out here and think that I suspect that there is nobody on this commission that the head of the DPW would like to hear from. In other words, I don't think it's a personality issue. I think it's a sort of structural issue about whether the DPW is interested in proceeding in a way that respects our historic fabric or proceeding in a way that is most efficient for that department. I think he sees those two things as in conflict. I think he sees them that way, and I don't think there's any way I'm not sure there's any way we could rectify the fact that he perceives them as a conflict, and he will proceed to go in the way he thinks is efficient, which he thinks is a modernizing way. That's my opinion. So in other words, I don't think it's any one of us. I have a feeling it's not you or your personality. It would be the same if he was talking to Mickey or Clement or Susan or me.
Susan?
I can't think of a better person to speak with him either. I've spoken with him before about things, and it's always a complex dance to try to even get a comprehensive idea of what's on his mind as far as where he's going. I think it's a little more well, I have a question, and that is I'm wondering whether he has pressure from other parts of the government to operate in the way that he's operating. And so I would look at the issue a little more deeply and say, maybe it's not, a one-on-one thing. Maybe it's because there are people behind him that are, other parts of the government branches that are putting pressure on him financially or in whatever way. So I don't know how to go about, maybe Dawn has more information on, who he has to respond to.
I think that's really astute, Susan, and it wasn't a place my mind had gone, so I really appreciate you bringing it up. I mean, part of when I say I feel like we've been brushed aside, I mean, we had this whole initiative around the sidewalks. We had so much public support to have a policy in place. We had support of our town preservation planner. We tried to be reasonable and really logical about it all. And it just doesn't seem to be a priority. So now we have all this sidewalk work. I mean, the packet we should look at together, we've got, Lower Broad Street with all these bump outs and widenings, and it says right there, we're going to remove the curbs. We've got a sewer main going from C Street all the way through the historic sector, all the way out Pine Street, with a statement that they're going to renovate sidewalks. And we have no policy in place. We have a sidewalk committee that was appointed and then just, basically more not asked to meet since May of 2019. And so, Dawn, can you help us? I mean, we're trying to do our jobs to advocate and protect and advise the town on preservation of historic material. And I also don't want to put Holly in a difficult position. So much is falling to Holly. The DPW says, well, I'll work with Holly, but I'm not going to talk to you. I'm really asking for help.
Well, I'm actually not prepared to speak on this today. I think that you have an email from Libby saying that she's still discussing internally, and it's not my place to go beyond that at the moment. I mean, I will say, because I did share this with you, Hillary, that I think it would be helpful if other board members were to be liaisons with different people. It's something that we do as the select board. We each take a subcommittee, if you will, in many different areas. And I think that it would be helpful to hear a little bit more from other voices directly. Because there has been some difficulty in relationships. And I'd like to see this be productive. but I'm not prepared to give you a final answer on the sidewalks. I mean, that was a report that was done by a private organization, and it's been given to the town, and there's been analysis coming back, and they do intend to incorporate a number of the principles in it. But I think that there were some questions about some of them and about all of the areas that it applies to. And I think that Holly is definitely the point person on this within the town organization. I mean, I certainly want to hear from her if she's uncomfortable with that. And there is more internal discussion going on, but I don't have final answers from Libby, so I can't fully speak to it.
Well, I think we should hear from Holly, and we should talk about having a different person, different people on the commission active with different discussions. It's really not at all about me, and I'd be happy to have less to do. So in my volunteer job. So I do want to just make a couple comments on what you said about the sidewalk. So if there's been technical feedback to the town, we would love to see it. I mean, I haven't seen it. The report that we did had two components. We did have a highly qualified preservation engineer make comments, met with Rob, walked around with a whole group of people from the town. But was a whole other part of our recommendation, which had to do with preservation planning of how, what steps should be taken to make sure that the artifacts in the road are preserved. And that had nothing to do with the engineering report. The engineering report was only one of the 6 steps, and it was a report for you all to take under advisement. So we're really talking about this like preservation planning process. So I really hope that came across in the report that we did. Holly, could you comment a little bit about that? Or I don't want to put you on the spot, Holly, but if you'd like to say something, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, I am the staff liaison to you all through the town. As same thing with the HDC from a technical standpoint. I am waiting direction on what is going to be accepted, what's not going to be accepted. I think also we need to step back and say there's 2 different things that are being discussed here. One is the report on this particular project for the Sparks Pleasant Street Williams that you all submitted to MHC. There's that. That was also copied to the town manager and staff, but also the preservation standards that you all put together in collaboration with the preservation engineer, Matthew, who was a gift, if you will, to the town, an excellent gift, I think, to provide some feedback on what exactly we need to do with our historic streets. I think that's obviously we all agree on that. I'm staff, I'm kind of the middle person, if you will. That's why I'm a liaison. I have to work with the planning director, who's my boss. I have to work with the DPW director, who's not my boss, but is superior nonetheless, and obviously town administration. So I will take direction from them and be the in-between for you all as much as I possibly can. As soon as I get the green light on moving forward with those particular projects as far as acceptance, I think that would be great. I don't know what more I can say. And I do appreciate you all understanding that I am the in-between, but I'm here to, that's why I'm preservation planner. And I just also would hope you all know that as much as being preservation planner is to help you all as the planning commission, which I helped advocate to get you all reinstated, if you will, there are other aspects of my position with the town that I do work on, as you all are aware. So.
Holly, could you just clarify thank you for those comments, and we do appreciate you and know that you wear many hats, as everybody does. Could you just elaborate? I want to make sure I understand what you mean about you rightly pointed out there's two different conversations. There's, you know, the review, just making sure that the historical commission's comments on these important projects in the streets in the old historic district are heard and respected and incorporated, and that the town is responsive to them. And you said you're waiting for approval or waiting. I didn't understand what you meant.
As far as the report, same thing you all are waiting on. The
Oh,
direction
for
on
the
a policy for
sidewalks, the direction on the policy for sidewalks.
Correct,
Yes.
but-
Okay, sorry.
But I wanted to mention that that was separate from the report that you all provided for with the section 106 for
Yes.
the complete streets about Pleasant Street
Yes.
and all that. Those are two
Yeah.
separate aspects, so I just wanted to make that clear.
Yes. I want to just share with you all, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the packet. Can you all see my screen? You can see the document. I'm just finding, okay. So there are a lot of updates from the town. It's not really clear from the agenda, but if you look at the packet, I'm just navigating. It's a very, very long series of updates on capital projects, many, many projects. Just getting to the right one. That's not it. That's that big trailer. Okay. So this is in the packet, you know, talking about the improvements. This is Easy Street and Broad Street, and you can see, can you see on the right hand side, you might need to minimize or move the pictures of all of us, but this is this plan that we've given, you know, specific feedback on. We don't think these shapes, we didn't have a problem with the widening, but we think the treatment of this corner is problematic, and you know, we keep saying it and it keeps showing up, and there's, you know, nothing in here about review with the HDC. One of our steps was, if you're going to redo sidewalks, you know, Libby has brought up to me several times about this sidewalk on Lower Broad Street, how there are these interesting artifacts, this marble block, where did it come from? Let's make sure it stays there. So our step one is, before you redesign a sidewalk or lift a sidewalk, document what is worth saving in the sidewalk. And then send that to the design engineer to make sure that they've accounted for it when they design. That's step one. And step two is, I can't remember the order of the steps, but if you have changes to dimensions, review them with the HDC or the NHC, take the feedback about that. And then, you know, just a process that we want to see. So we don't really see anything about that in this. And then this Pleasant Sparks Williams, you know, there's nothing mentioned about our letter. Nobody's gotten back to us. Our comments were de minimis. You know, we felt that on Sparks, there should be a strip of grass so that you don't just have this continuous stretch of pavement. And, you know, there's never been a public meeting on this, like an information session. Even in the Beta's proposal, if you look at their proposal that they gave to the town, which is on the website about this project, it has placeholders for public information sessions for the public to comment. And this, you know, the fact that this is going to be talked about is not even on the agenda for the select board. You have to look in the packet. It just says town updates. And then if you get down to the sewer, a lot of the, you know, I think that some of this they could use the tip for, but so if you get, sorry. If you get down to the, no, that's not it. The third sewer force main, you know, this is going all the way through the town here. And there's a lot of concern. So it says here somewhere that you know, we support these projects. I mean, I certainly certainly don't want to hold up a problem with replacing a sewer main. I mean, there was, as it says right here, catastrophic failure, but we hope that the historical aspects can be considered. And, you know, this design is now 40% complete. We've been told that somebody will talk to us. And, you know, it's really, so here it says that the Massachusetts Historical Commission has reviewed the PNF and concluded it will have no adverse effect. Well, they reviewed the portion outside the town. So anyway, I'm just not feeling very good about where we are as far as making sure that these projects take into account the historic character and fabric of the town. I'm very concerned about it. Yes, Holly. Holly?
Thank you. If we're diving into the sewer project now on the agenda, as I've stated before, I have been in consultation through the sewer department to all the different entities. There is the EPG is the one who did the environmental. There's Hazen and Sawyer, there's Weston Sampson, there's all these different entities. I may have said that sewer had Weston Sampson, my apologies, it's actually Hazen and Sawyer. With that, as I had reported last month, I said that we were going to receive a copy of the 60% of the plans of the in-town portion of the project. I did receive them yesterday afternoon, late yesterday, so I wasn't able to send them to you all, but I have them available. I can put them on the screen if we want to go over them and email to you all later to take a look at. I don't know how you want me to handle that, but I did receive them. I haven't even had a full review of them yet, but these are the nitty-gritty of the project that literally was just provided to Hazen and Sawyer through Environmental Partners. Environmental Partners is the organization that consulted with me before they submitted or started their submitting process through MHC. They understand the importance of the historic district. Again, I've notated before when the select board picked the direction that they were going to go, I immediately contacted the sewer director to say, hey, okay, where do we stand? There was, this is it. This is the 60% again. This is not 100%. But if you zoom into some of these locations, I wanted to get to this C Street section. I think this also ties in with the second section, which goes from the new sewer pump station on Surfside Road to the sewer beds, which was a whole different MHC. Here we go.
Have these been sent to the, sorry, Holly, to interrupt, just a question. What is on the project notification form? Does it indicate C Street to Surfside Pump Station, or does it indicate Vesper Lane to Surfside Pump Station?
My understanding is there was two sections, two applications.
And did we give them a PNF for this in-town application? Project notification form to the MHC?
I believe their consultant did, yes.
Okay.
Again, I want to mention that it was not, I did not get that individual review like I had help with our transportation planner, Mike, before he was here, about the complete street section, where I was able to provide input before they submitted to MHC.
Okay. Right, well, and that also, sorry, Holly, but that only includes Sparks. If that project notification form doesn't include Pleasant Street. So.
Okay, well, again, I can only go by what's provided to me.
I know.
And I've also mentioned to the sewer director, who works really well with me, hey, I don't want to, I'm kind of getting all confused on who's doing what. There's so many different projects going on. I don't want to make sure we're dropping the ball, but I will say this, that one of the biggest things that I brought up to their attention was, where are the limits of disturbance? I've been told that the limits of disturbance were going to be in the existing spot. You got to remember our town, especially the spot where we're very sensitive with, which is really like this area in the fish lots, created in the 1717. We know over the last 300 years that it's been disturbed within our streets. I've been assured that the limits of disturbance was included within the areas that they've already disturbed, which is in the streets and not within the sidewalks. There are, however, was told that there are certain areas along where C Street and Step Lane join in, that they're going to, on an individual basis, going to have to possibly look at redoing the sidewalks. And I was assured at those individual situations that they would come to the Historical Commission to talk about how it would look. I explained that we want to be able to utilize existing material, do not replace with something that's not historically sensitive if it has to be replaced. Again, I've also mentioned to this commission that, there are things as preservation planner that I help the town on an individual basis, whether there's a sewer, main break or issue somewhere, somebody needs to get into there and take up there's been houses on Main Streets, for instance, where towards Nantucket, that the sidewalk had to be ripped up because they had a leak and it was an emergency and they were getting their approvals like that. I wanted to make sure if they're going to be taking up their sidewalk, you're putting the same materials down, show me exactly on a photo where those limits of disturbance are. You have to work with people and they understand how historically sensitive this all is. So, I would just want to respectfully, mention that there are things as preservation planner that I do for the town on an individual basis that not necessarily the purview of this commission. I just wanted to mention that, but I also understand the importance of Section 106 and what your job is under the federal law. Again, this is the first time I'm looking at these detailed plans.
Right.
So I will send these all to you. That didn't require a Dropbox. It was pretty, it's a substantial size, 46 pages, but it actually came through pretty good. So I can send these all for the commission to take a look at on their individual basis. And then if there are comments that you all want to come up with, please let me know.
Yes, Angus. Thank you, Holly. Holly, could you stop sharing so then we can see everyone for discussion? Thanks.
Thanks, Holly. I think, anytime that we see work that's happening is proposed, and especially with the sewer main or the sidewalks or any street work, I think because we've invested our resources and our energy into creating these guidelines, if we had an acknowledgement from the town and a confirmation of their receipt of it and commitment to following through with those principles, that we would probably sleep a lot easier knowing that even if we weren't being notified, which I think we should be of all the activities where there are historic materials at large, that the town is following the guidelines that make the most sense. And I guess that kind of loops back to really the town's receptiveness to our board in general. And I did want to say, Hillary, that I think that it would be challenging not to take the town's reactions personally, because you're our chair and the face of our organization. But I don't think I'm the only one on the commission who believes that you're probably best prepared and articulate to represent the interests of all of us. And I so appreciate you heading up these discussions. But if for some unnecessary and personal reason, the town is not being as receptive to your direct communication with them. I, for one, and I think anyone else on the board would be happy to represent us. So that's all.
Thank you, Angus. I really appreciate that you're be willing to raise your hand for this delightful job. Tom? Oh, we can't hear you, Tom.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
I had a question for Holly, but it's gone by the board. Although, as I've mentioned on this board in a couple of meetings before, they're doing the sewer and water main work on my street, North Liberty Street, right now. And so I've gotten a firsthand knowledge since October of what it is they're doing. And with what we're talking about going through very historic parts of the town to take the sewer out of town, I hope what they're doing on my street, which is the second oldest street on Nantucket, is not what they're going to do going through the rest of the town, which is they've taken up all the sidewalks, all the curbs, and in my street in particular, it has some of the sidewalk is macadam, some of it is brick, some of it is concrete. There are places where there's just a path, and some of the curb is very old. Some of it is probably 60 to 100 years old, and the rest of it is, fairly modern. And if they're going to do that throughout the town, when to get the sewers out of town, I think it's extremely important that we know and are aware of what they're going to do with the sidewalks and the curbs and all the rest of the stuff that they're going to have to take up between here and there. Thank you.
Holly, can I just make one comment before I go to you about this? I just want to make sure that everybody understands my concern is stemming from the fact that, we're getting an update. The select board will be getting an update from David Gray on Wednesday, wherein he says this has all been approved with no adverse effect from the MHC. And he's presenting the whole project. He's not just presenting, Vesper Street out Surfside, which we know that portion has been approved with no concerns. And Susan kindly looked through the archaeological findings, had no concerns. So one of the things I will be asking is for a motion to send a letter to the MHC and copy the select board saying that we too have no concerns about that portion. However, we haven't even seen the other portion, and it is using the same financing facility. It is subject to Section 106 review. We haven't seen it. It's only now been produced. So it's a concern to me that the board is going to be hearing that there are no concerns when half the project through a really sensitive part of town has not even been reviewed. And I do feel like the town is pressuring me to just be quiet about this, and that means pressuring our commission to be quiet about this and just let it all happen. And I have to say, I'm losing sleep over it. Like, I had a terrible night last night. I'm not cut out for this sort of political work where like you compromise on stuff that's really important to you because powerful people want you to. It's just not in my makeup. Holly, yes.
Welcome to local government.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that just means you're passionate about it. As mentioned previously about North Liberty Street, I did mention at the last meeting because I wanted to get clarification on that. That was a project that was before this commission was created or reinstated, I should say. I do not know any particulars on that other than that. I don't know if anything was submitted to MHC. I don't know. I do know that work is in correlation with CC Construction is doing a water and sewer replacement project from Cliff Road to the intersection of Lily, North Liberty, and Liberty. And it's been going on for the last 2 years. And that was directly from the sewer director. It's totally separate from these particular projects. I just want to notate that for the record.
Yeah, I didn't mean to, reference that at all. I'm just using my own street as an example of what I've seen is going on. And I don't know if they can take the streets and the sewers up and all that without taking the sidewalks and the curbs out. But if they could, that certainly would be a plus, is all I was really referring to.
So Holly, thank you for getting that information and doing what you're doing and forwarding it to us. And we will look at it. You know, it's a lot of work. I do feel like I'm just sort of we're all eating ourselves up reviewing these projects when clearly when we put in the time and we review them, literally nobody cares. You know, that there could be a proposal to the select board that doesn't even mention that there was feedback received from the, you know, historical commission that we do X, Y, Z. Like, you know, they don't care. So, so the question is, what do we do? What do we do to fulfill our responsibility? What do we do to be good citizens? What do we do to protect the historic fabric of our national historic landmark? And as far as so I flagged a couple concerns. One is the proper Section 106 review of the whole project. I don't know what is on that project notification form, and I would like to verify. I'd like to see what project notification forms for the sewer force main project have gone to the MHC so that I can actually know. So Holly, I would really be grateful if you would send those after the meeting as follow-up to everyone on the commission. And I have also asked the MHC, and they've been kind of MIA. So if depending on what's on those project notification forms, we will have a little bit more of a sense of if we can productively offer feedback to the Massachusetts Historical Commission about the in-town work. Then we have the opportunity to offer feedback to the town. We have discussion that's happening at the select board. It's not noticed, you know, even on the agenda, but presumably they will recognize people who want to speak. So we have a couple of things that we can do. Holly, you know, would it be appropriate for you to make some comments? Would it be appropriate to request that the letter that we sent to the MHC and copied the town manager and the head of the select board and the planning director about the Sparks Avenue, you know, sidewalks, be included in the packet and distributed to the board for this discussion? Does it make sense for us to nominate someone, not me, to read a letter about our general, you know, concern and the need to review? I mean, there's plenty of time. The in-town work is not happening right away. We have time to review this productively. Okay, so let's hear comments. Holly, you want to say something?
Yeah. First of all, I'd have to track down from Hazen and Sawyer, which I will do, a copy of the project notification form because I don't have those. Second off, my understanding is, you know, a lot of what MHC comes back with on a lot of their Section 106 reviews for Nantucket is, and we've talked about this before, is about the archaeology. And they want to have what they call the discoveries, post-review discoveries. And more than likely, that's what's going to be taking place for both of these sections. I don't know. I don't know what, you know,
Holly,
let me get down to getting the copy of the PNR.
PNF, yeah. Holly, see, I think there's two ways to interpret this. You're right about this interest in archaeology. I'm just wondering, you know, how much of that is because they actually have maps showing where the lands of archaeological interest are. And like Jonathan Patton is an archaeologist. So versus the buildings and the sidewalks, they don't have any information about that. So that's why the relationship with the local historical commission is so important.
Right. But even we don't have, you know, that individual information, so to speak. Again, I think it would be very beneficial before there's like freak out of taking a look at these plans that we just received and seeing where those limits of disturbance are. And if they go outside the existing limits of disturbance that have been done before, I think that's where the red flag needs to come up and say, hey, we want to know specifics on what you plan on doing in these sensitive locations. Other than that, you know, again, I've been asking since day one to make sure this is within a very sensitive area of Nantucket, the fish lot, 1717, where you're going to be proposing your opening up, disturbing to put this sewer force main in, which is very, very important, as we all know. If it's going outside of something that's been previously done, that's a problem. And we want to, I mean, I've stressed that to, I've stressed it through the sewer director. I've stressed it to their consultants. This is important. And they do understand that. So,
okay. Well, it will be great to hear that from them. And, you know, we've also been talking to Rob McNeil about sidewalks for 2 years. And, you know, then he's presenting a plan for sidewalks in 2 locations on Wednesday to the select board that has none of our feedback in it. So I'm just a little concerned. I'd like to hear from the commissioners. This meeting on Wednesday is important. So what should we do? Ben, do you have any comments?
I don't know if I have any constructive comments, but I think just not to drag this out, but I think about DPW and the town in general. It's a very, they have a very objective view of the world. It's materials and cost, and it's a very, black and white view of how things need to be done. And this board, unfortunately, is more of a subjective group where it's the feeling of an old piece of material and the sense you get from walking down Historic Street. And it's like oil and water. It's very hard to see those two things blending. And I think that as a group, if we can find a way to either speak their language or get them to hear our language, I think that's important. But for this specific thing, I don't know if I have anything really constructive to offer.
Okay. Mickey? Oh, and then Susan?
I guess, I certainly feel your frustration. It's frustrating for all of us, but you're up front. I wonder if and maybe you kind of alluded to this before, that just going to the select board meeting at their public comment section and just expressing your frustration. I don't think any of us can speak as clearly about these issues as you do. As much as I'd like to be a representative making those comments, I don't think I would do it nearly as well as you do. So I think the select board in general, I think they would be receptive and sympathetic to those comments. And they're the ones that can put pressure on the DPW. I think they're the only ones that can. So I guess that's all I can offer. It's a sort of a public comment regarding that.
Okay, thank you, Mickey. Susan?
Well, just to put a little historic aspect to the commission itself, this exact frustration that you're expressing now is the reason this commission has kind of come and gone along the way, having sat on it several different times myself. This is the first time I've seen, under your direction, Hillary, so much progress made. And I would hate to see you become so frustrated that you abandon the cause, so to speak. So I do see I guess what I want to say is I do see progress from where this commission was years and years ago. So please, I know you don't see it as much because you don't have the historic perspective on what has happened with the commission. So yes, progress has been made. I'm very encouraged by it. And the other comment I would make was that, is it possible, instead of going to the board meetings and expressing our frustration, that we might just go and be the, if they don't mention us, we should go and, as you say, in the comment section, if they don't recognize us as part of the packet itself, just go and say, yes, we just want to let you know we did review this, and, you know, kind of just nudge them a bit until it becomes embarrassing that they don't mention us outright, that we have to show up at every meeting.
Yeah.
It's the other way to do it is, if they're not going to acknowledge us, then we'll acknowledge them, and the fact that we've publicly, we'll make a statement. I don't
I
know
think
what.
that's good advice. And I think it is important to remember the victories along the way.
So much.
Yeah.
It's been amazing. It's really amazing. So
Great.
I'll mute myself now.
Holly, I see you have your hands up, but I would like to hear from the commissioners. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on this? Okay, Holly?
I just wanted to thank Susan for that, because you give that, pun intended, that historical information for the commission. And I'd like to also thank, you know, as we all know, and I've stressed it before, this past year has been horrible with COVID and a lot of restraints. And I'm sitting at my house because my kid's in class, you know, at home. I can't wait for them to go back to school full time. That's been very, very challenging. But I do think that this commission has done an extraordinarily good job. And I would also like to hope that having a staff member that helps you all in that effort is also there. You know, there are things that I was involved with from a preservation standpoint before this position was even created, and before you all were even created. So I like to think that the town understands what preservation is and how important it is to this National Historic Landmark. I wanted to thank you for that. I wanted to also, I've been thinking a little bit more about your question, Hillary. I have not been involved with any further discussion about the sidewalks downtown, and that does concern me. And so if you or someone from the commission plans on speaking or providing comments to select board, I would think to go that route, because in my humble opinion, the sidewalk behind me that happened at the Pacific Club is the catalyst that created this group back up again. And the public,
We lost
what's
you.
going on here? Oh crap. Your default microphone has changed. Can you guys hear me at all?
Yes, we can hear you now. There was just a little hiccup.
Weird. So that's my point is if there's something that you really want to show frustration on, I would show frustration on that. Because I am concerned. I haven't heard anything more about it. And that kind of goes back to, you know, that we had a sidewalk working group that was created. I was a member on. There was a lot of things that, you know, I showed my, as an in-between, as a preservationist by my education, and as a planner by profession, and sitting around with people that have knowledge like Penn, and sitting around with our, you know, DPW director who has that technical engineering background. I felt like I was in the middle. I don't know if Mickey, I think Angus, you know, thought that as well, but and really and truly, that's why this commission was created. So I would just recommend focusing on that work that's going to be seen right when people get off the boat. That's right in your face, and there's nothing that is really engaging your review. Whereas these other projects, there is an engagement involved. So that's just my humble
You
recommendation.
mean it's not like a forced review, the town has to opt into it? Yeah. Yeah, so focus on that. I think that's a really, really good point, Holly.
Thank you.
So, okay, should we, so the chair of the select board has told me on the phone, as she said, you know, in our meeting, that, you know, Hillary, you comment on a lot of things, because I talk to them about preservation work, but I also talk to them about other things that I just as a citizen am concerned about. And so like I made a public records request of the DEP about the public parking lot personally, because I don't like that I can't park downtown, and I don't like that there are 13 private spaces in that lot that is a public lot. So I made a public records request, and the town is unhappy that I made a public records request of the DEP. And so what I've been told is that it makes people not want to work with me. And I think that working together and being a, you know, a diverse team of like really committed people is, the team will always win. So on the other hand, you know, you all have made it clear that you want me to chair this group. You've said multiple times in this discussion that I'm informed, knowledgeable, articulate, and the right spokesperson. So part of me wants to say, well, get used to it, you know, like you're going to hear from me. So, so would anybody like to step up and be the spokesperson, you know, to go to meetings? I think I see it both ways. I think it's really helpful to show the depth and breadth of our commission, the commitment to have different people take leadership roles. I think all of that is really important. What would you like? What's the pleasure of the group? Yes, Angus.
I think as chair, it's perfectly logical that you would be our representative. But as I was saying before, if we reach a point where it's more productive for the rest of the group to speak, then I think the best way for us to do that, the most effective way, is for all of us to participate. And I'm happy to start it off, but I think you know, that if the rest of the board is going to or commission is going to be representing us, it should be all of us.
Tom?
Someone had mentioned a little earlier, and I thought it was a good idea, that you know, if they don't want to recognize us or hear us, it might have been Susan that said it. What would be wrong if we all showed up down there as a board and in the public comment section aired our grievances? I mean, get it right out there in the public. Let them know. I mean, you know, why are we even a board that's been so appointed by the select board if they're not going to take what we're doing and the hard work that we're doing and the obvious stuff that's you can see we're doing for what it's worth. I mean, I understand a lot of what's going on here, you know, with the politics and everything else that goes on in this town. And why not just take it to the select board and tell them straight? I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. And then that helps you. I mean, they'll see that you're not just riding in alone. You've got, you know, a posse, and take it from there.
Angus?
I just wanted to build on what Tom was saying. When we talk about the DPW and where what's important to them. I think it's the people around them, town administration, select board. If they are behind what we're doing, then DPW can't help but to be, or whatever board is or town government is being affected. And we just have to hope that, you know, personal issues or political agendas aren't going to get in the way of the betterment of the community. And that's why we're here, is to make Nantucket as, or preserve as much of Nantucket as possible for future generations. And I think we have to look closer at any individual who or group that isn't aligned with that, and speak our minds.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, clearly they don't. I mean, I'm sad. I think it took about a year for this board to declare itself, but I think this board, while individually they may have feelings that preservation is important, collectively it's not as important as other things. And I think there are also some feelings that, you know, if it gets in the way of bike paths, then it's definitely not important. Or if it gets in the way of you know, other things that we're doing, it's definitely not important. Or if it takes, you know, the town manager's time away from other projects, it's just not something that can be done right now. Yes, Holly.
I just wanted to, you know, I don't want you all to feel discouraged, because I really do think the town has come a long way. Case in point, you all, me, you know, and the select board has their strategic plan, and in their strategic plan, historic preservation is included in that definition. I think that is really important. They understand it. It's well implied. It's the preservation planning perception or I think aspect that has been lacking all these years. We've had obviously an HDC since 55. That's fantastic. We've been able to preserve our island. Obviously, we've got other challenges now. We're ahead of the game compared to other locations on the Cape. I can assure you of that. I have had conversations with other preservation planners and folks over there recently. And they look to Nantucket as an example. So we should be very happy that we have that. I think obviously we've got baby steps that we've done. We've accomplished becoming a certified local government. I can't wait to receive that official document so I can share it with you all and post it on the website for everybody to see. That is instrumental, and as you all know, something that I've been wishing for since I was interning at Nantucket Preservation Trust many moons ago. But the fact of the matter is, our town government and through our select board, they do recognize us. They do recognize preservation and its sustainability. Is how the town of Nantucket will focus on historic preservation, equity and inclusion, natural resources, hazard mitigation, solid waste management, a long run-on sentence, but it includes historic preservation at the top of their definition.
Well,
That is awesome.
I know, that is great. Unfortunately, yeah, Georgia, go ahead.
Am I on here? Let's see.
We can hear you.
Yep. I'm just reminded, and I'm sure all of you will remember this argument too. Remember when the A&P closed and there was a discussion over what was going to open downtown at the downtown A&P spot, and the CVS, the drugstore, they were about to get a lease from Nantucket Island Properties, and there was a huge uproar about that. And the point was that if you got off the ferry from the mainland where there were a million CVSs, and the first thing you saw was a CVS, over time, why were you going to come to Nantucket to look at a place, to find a place that was nothing more like than what you already had on the mainland? And the point of Nantucket was to strengthen the historic identity, strengthen the historic character, support the historic architecture, and maintain the character of the island as the landmark that it is. And I think the islanders, when they're reminded of that, are behind it. The select board is clearly behind it. I'm not convinced that the town government is behind it. I'm not convinced that entities like the DPW are behind it or even remember it. I don't think Rob McNeil was here when that fight happened. I remember almost the storming of the public meeting that took place that over not allowing NIR to give a lease to CVS. And the fellow who rushed in, I think it was Steve Cohen, who rushed into that meeting waving the document saying, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. It was, it was just an extremely important emotional moment in keeping Nantucket historical. And I think we have to try to see if there's, and we're supported by the select board, and we have to keep reminding ourselves that there is a good chunk of the island that recognizes that, but it's not embodied, as far as I can see, in a good chunk of the administration of the town government. And I'm disappointed in that. Maybe Holly can change my mind about that, but I'm certainly not seeing it when we're in our encounters with the mechanism of the DPW and mechanism of the sewer maintenance, the sewer reconstruction people.
Well, folks, thank you, Georgia, for reminding that. And it does make me look forward to when we can all gather together again, although it's been great to be able to get so much done remotely with everybody over Zoom. There are a couple, we're reaching the end of our meeting. I know we've had to linger on this topic for a while. There are a couple other things I'm really hoping to get approval for and talk about. But so what should we do on Wednesday? So the proposals have been, to make a comment in public comment about the lack of the sidewalk committee meeting, that Holly hasn't been involved. That's one option. Two, to post a public meeting of our own, which we could still do if I do it before 2, and that we're all on the line. We wouldn't be panelists, we would be on the line for public comment, but because we'd all be public commenting, I guess we'd need to post a meeting and then have people make individual statements under public comment, which would annoy the board for sure because it takes up time. The other option is to prepare some comments and ask Angus to read them. That we would, I guess, ask to be acknowledged before the updates, and I think it would say something like, you're going to hear about a lot of sidewalk projects, and the Historical Commission has the following comments. We'd ask Angus to read that. He's volunteered to do that. Or we could do nothing. What do you all think we should do? Yes, Angus.
As someone who sits on a couple of other commissions where time is pressed, just as we are today, we're hardly ever able to cover all the material that we need to. And it is stressful and disruptive to have any unnecessary comment. But this is a very important cause. And if this is our only venue and way to get our message across, then I think we have to consider it.
The public comment,
Yes.
the freight train of public comments. There are also a lot of
Yes,
people in the
and-
community. I mean, we had 26 emails saying, get this policy done. And, those people might want to come and say something.
Well, and I'm sure that that's just a fraction.
Yeah. No, there was a lot of people.
Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Mickey?
I'm just thinking that, it's kind of what Angus is saying, but maybe I'm going to come to a different conclusion, is that, we don't want to annoy them. I'm not sure we all want to get up there and talk. I think if we have one voice, one representative, but we all show up, whether they know it or not, if we're all there, I think it might be a more effective means of expressing our issue.
Yeah. Tom, did you want to give your opinion about this?
Well,
It's a long game, by the way. Sorry, I just want to say, there'll be many opportunities. It's not just this Wednesday. So go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to reiterate what I said. I mean, that was the whole idea of what I said. We'll go there and back you up, and kind of be your posse, so to speak. And you're not just there by yourself. All of us feel this way, and we're representatives of the town, also citizens. And so that's going to be 9 or 10 of us there just for starters.
Mhm.
I agree, and I think maybe if Angus doesn't mind being the front man for that, that would be great. But that we should, as many of us as can, definitely show up, but have one person speaking, because we don't want to annoy them
Yeah,
too much. Yeah, we just want to be a presence. We want to be acknowledged that we're, as you're saying earlier, we're working, we're producing things, and here we are. Basically, that's all we want to say is we want to just show up and say, here we are, we're available to help, and we're also available to make comment.
when is the right time to do it? I'm sure Dawn would acknowledge us if we said we wanted to speak in advance of the updates. That would be my guess. I can't, of course, predict what would happen. And the other option is to make a general statement in public comment.
I would hope that you could talk to her about what would be the appropriate
Mhm.
timing
Okay.
for it. And I think it would be better if it was something that was kind of on her schedule and not, just a random thing. But if she
Okay.
doesn't think that's appropriate and she wants it to be in just general public, then that's what we do.
Okay. Okay, so what I'm hearing, did anybody else want to speak that I didn't hear from? No. Okay, so what I'm hearing is that Angus and I will work together on a statement. We'll consider everything that was said, during this meeting. We'll let Dawn know that we'd like to make a statement. We'll ask her if she'd like us to make it during public comment or if she would be willing to acknowledge us before the updates. And Angus will read the statement. Is anyone opposed to my sort of making a statement too, if there's anything I feel necessary to add after Angus speaks? I would assume no. Yes, Angus?
I think any of it's appropriate, whether it's all of us or two of us or any of it. Regardless, I mean, we can't imagine you not being a part of this board. So as long as you're a part of this board, like, you can't ignore that. It's not.
Yeah.
I may
Yeah.
speak, but you're there beside me.
Yeah, I am, because I'm a little sensitive that of course they don't want me to speak. Of course they want me to feel like, get Hillary out of here. We don't want to work with her anymore. And I don't think that's right. It's not respectful. I'm a citizen and a voter and chair of this commission. So
Yeah, and I don't think it's you personally. I think it's that there's a status quo that that seems to work for everybody, and we're unfortunately seen as a disruption to that, as opposed to an improvement on it.
And Tom?
Well, this may be a gladiator statement, but I think it's because you're making a difference.
Yeah. Okay, so when I'll let everybody know, what I hear back about timing. Angus and I will work on a statement that reflects the comments of this meeting, and everybody will be encouraged to Zoom in. The public won't know that we're there. We won't be panelists, but the board I think the board will know that we're there. I'm not even sure, but anybody, should feel free to raise their hand, even if you just say, like, I'm serving on this commission, I want to support it. Holly, do you want to make a comment?
Not really. My comment was going to be, are you going to be posting a meeting notice for open meeting law
I actually
purposes?
don't. So the way the open meeting law works, as far as I know, is that if we are I know it's the practice on Nantucket that if there is a quorum at another public meeting, to post a meeting. But the way that the open meeting law works is if the meeting is already a public meeting and you are speaking at the public meeting, you actually are not, violating open meeting law. So my sense and my preference would be to not post a public meeting because we're not really meeting. We're coming to a select board meeting and, you know, and speaking.
Okay, I only mention that is because any public, like you said, it's typical for Nantucket to, if you're gonna have a group at another person, you know, another group's meeting, that you do recognize that. And I'm actually referencing this past Wednesday night, we had a quorum of HDC members at the select board meeting for the appeal that was before them. So, and Dawn did notice that there was a quorum of HDC members, so they did open a meeting and it was posted. I'm just
Okay.
going by experience and
can,
what
you know,
we've typically done.
We can post a meeting if you feel it's the better part of wisdom. Yep, Angus.
You could.
I think it's important for everyone to know that we are showing up as a board too.
Okay, that's another good point.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
And also,
Tom?
we don't want to break protocol if everyone else.
I agree with the
Okay.
Angus. I think that's the way to get it done.
Okay. All right, then I will do that. Duly noted. Okay, so I think we have a plan, and I thank you all for engaging, and thank you all for just being there and being so committed. We're at 12 o'clock. You know, we're meeting monthly now, so do people have a little more time? Can people stay to talk about this topic, recommendations to the HDC?
I have about 15 more minutes, but yes.
Okay. So one of our objectives is to make some recommendations to the HDC. We know that we can only make recommendations, you know, they can decide what they want to do. But just talking a little bit, I talked with Mickey and Ben about what we could focus on. And we came to the decision that while there were many, many, many areas of recommendations that we might want to make to the HDC, the preference was to focus on demolitions. And that was both because we felt that it was the most important topic, because once a building is gone, we can't get it back. And it's complicated, you know, there's different types of demolitions. And also that it was something that we might actually be able to have a positive reception about, because the HDC themselves have flagged demo move off policy as something that they want to work on. Holly, do you know what that means when they say we want to work organizationally on demo move off? What does it mean?
Actually, I don't know the specifics on that because, as you probably are aware, Kathy Flynn sets their agenda, so I have not seen the specifics on it. However, I do know that you know, as a staff liaison to the HDC as well, demolitions, I agree, would be something that would be very beneficial, and I think it also ties into y'all's work on the surveys that we're going to be going through. The biggest thing is information and having that information available. And I think I've stressed it to you all before that whenever there is a structure that's being proposed, regardless if it's within our advisory board areas or not, I try to find out the age, because we know that not necessarily is that information provided on the application or supplemented with. And I will tell you, the chair of the HDC is pretty good about asking me as well, even if it's something in the middle of the island for a proposed demolition. Hey, Holly, do we know the age of this structure? So my point is on this is that it is I think a good topic to be able to provide some sort of assistance. And I think that the work that the pending surveys will do will be able to benefit that process in being able to identify these structures, exactly the age. And I will say MPT has helped me being able to do that with providing information on a structure that actually was quite older than what the agent had thought. So I'm giving you my verbal support on that.
Mary has asked if she could make a comment. Mary?
Yeah, hi, Mary Bergman, Nantucket Preservation Trust. if I had to guess what the HTC, I think there's been some discussion about wanting to track the demolition / move off application as it relates to the application for a new structure. That does seem to be, there's some disconnect there. Sometimes they will not deny the demolition or approve it and instead kind of keep that as like a dangling, I don't know, carrot or the stick. I don't know which one it is. And then the HDC will move forward in reviewing a new structure. And then once the new structure, anyway, so that would be my guess as to what they're kind of looking at there. But my suggestion as someone who's thought about this very deeply for 2 years is that we need a new and separate application for demolitions to start. And I would suggest requiring a lot of documentation and looking at, what other towns require, having it in a place that can easily be viewed by the applicant and others, abutters and things like that. And the other thing that I would ask this commission to look into is, as it relates to our current, demolition delay, such that it is at what time, at what date, we all know that the structure has to be advertised for move off for 30 days before it can be demolished if the HDC grants a move demo. There are people who are advertising their structures the day they put in their application to the HDC. And so those 30 days could be up by the time they actually are heard by the HDC. So I would like a little bit of clarity around how that works and how it's supposed to work.
Okay.
I encourage you to look at, the idea of creating a separate demolition delay for, preferably preserved structures, because as you hit upon earlier with that land bank, it takes 6 months. That sounds pretty fast to be able to move a structure out here, and 60 days just it's not really enough time.
So Mary, thank you for that. Does anybody else, what do the commissioners think? I guess we should think a little bit about what our objective would be. So Mary is suggesting that we do some outreach to other commissions around the state and figure out how they handle demolitions, that we focus on some of the process about how much information is required. Is it a separate application? I think there are a lot of other issues, which is what is a demolition? Partial demolitions, interior demolitions, total demolition. There are factors like the hearing. It says in Building with Nantucket in Mind that there will be a public hearing held in accordance with the practice of the commission. Well, that's not in the act. So right now, there's not a notice public hearing. They don't open a public hearing. They don't re-notify abutters. It might be, that this application is going on for a year. People were notified a year ago that there was going to be some application. So I think there are a lot of issues to look into. Who else wants to say something about this idea? And what is, like, how can we be effective? I don't want to do a ton of work and then have the HTC be like, whatever, we're not doing anything. Thoughts on that? Yes, Angus.
I think whether it's Kathy or whoever proposed putting demolition on the agenda, we should find out what the motivation was, what their issues are, as onlookers and part of the process of advising the HDC regarding demolitions. We certainly have our own concerns, and we've heard just during this meeting from Anne and from Mary that that timing really is of the essence. The successful moves that we've heard of in salvage are a 6-month process. And if the timeline is starting when you put in the application, often the demo application will go on for months or years. So, if that timeline's already run through before it even gets approved, there's very little chance of recovery. the structure. So I think there, on a number of fronts, there needs to be some reconsideration of policy.
Yes, Tom. Thank you, Angus. Tom.
Yeah, I don't know how many people happen to tune into the select board meeting on Wednesday, but this topic was hot, and Diane Coombs, who's been on the HGC for a long time, had a lot to say about it, and so it's. I have a feeling that they're going to be discussing that amongst themselves, and I think it's perfectly. As Angus says, the time is of the essence to really talk about, come up with some kind of a policy. Whether we can help advise them on that or not, I don't know, but I'd like to talk about it some more.
Okay. So Georgia, yes.
Is it worthwhile, or have we already asked the HTC if there's a way they think we could help them in this area?
Yeah, well, I was going to suggest that about the joint meeting, Holly. You know, it's already practically the end of March. So we had a joint meeting in June last year. And we have to have at least one a year. So can we get something scheduled?
I can bring that up.
Okay, that would be great. Because I think that's that's what we need to figure this out. So I'll also share that, you know, I'm a graduate student now, and I'm taking a class on preservation planning, which I feel frankly I could teach from what I've learned over the past
That was
2
my
years.
favorite course. My favorite.
Was
Out of all of them.
well, yeah, I'm at this point, I'm like struggling to stay awake, frankly, because we're going over all this stuff, like reading, you know, the laws. I have to do a report on the Newton Historical Commission, like how it's structured, where it sits in government. It's pretty laughable. But anyway, this is sort of the core of the curriculum and what I have to do. But I asked my professor if I could have my final project be on demolition policy on Nantucket, because I have to do this report anyway. So why not, you know, make this the project, and then I would fulfill my requirement of my course and help the commission as well. So I'd love to be able to report to my professor that the Nantucket Historical Commission has approved my final project. So if you all like the idea of working on demolitions and coming up with some recommendations for the HDC, I'll entertain a motion on that.
I'll
Yes,
make a motion.
Georgia. Okay, it looks like Georgia moved, and Angus, would you second Georgia's motion?
I'll second.
Okay, so I will be working, let's have a vote. Ben?
Aye.
Okay, chair votes aye. Susan?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Mickey?
Aye.
David? I hope David's still with us. David, if you want to vote, unmute yourself. So, okay, so we're going to work on demolition policy. We'll come up with an outline. If you all have specific thoughts, send them to Holly. And Holly, if you could, you know, we should probably have some conference, some meeting or something about this, because this is really core to what you're doing as well. And maybe Mary would like to work on that with us so that we can come up with an outline of what to work on. I think it's going to entail some research about what the current face of demolitions are on Nantucket. Yes, Angus.
I would just propose to Holly that when you're speaking with the HTC about coordinating a meeting between our commission and the HTC, that maybe you could also ask what the agenda was or what the issue was with the demolition discussion, and also what ways they think we could be most helpful to them.
Yeah.
That way we can start thinking about it before our meeting.
Yeah, and I'll get the specifics from, I think Mary hit the nail on the head of where they were coming from. I just wasn't involved with putting that on the agenda, so I didn't really get into the specifics of it, but it is on their agenda. And I will, now that technically we are a CLG, just waiting for that final document, we do need to have a joint meeting and see when we can schedule that one.
Thanks, Al.
So
Okay.
this will be good.
That sounds great. We have one other, God, we have a couple quick announcements. We have an agenda item, which is incentive to promote preservations of homes. We're not going to be able to get to that, but I have been working with David about tax credits, doing some kind of a program. David, do you want to say anything about this? I don't know if you're there.
I'm here, guys. Can
Oh,
you hear me?
okay, great. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I mean, so
just a
Hillary,
quick update for everyone.
yeah. Based on, I guess your conversation with Dawn, it sounds like NARAB would be interested in offering a continuing education course for real estate agents. I mentioned to Hillary that I'm due for my continuing education. So, and I know several other brokers that are as well. So I think it's a good actionable item for us to kind of get behind. And I think that between Hillary and myself, we could probably get approval with NARAB and get this kind of off the ground. So would love to hear other thoughts from the commissioners, and thanks Hillary for spearheading this.
Great, thank you, David, for working on this. So we're gonna look into the tax credits. We also had, I wanted the committee to be aware of this small loan fund that the town of Arlington has. I put the loan documents in our packet. The town of Arlington got a community development block grant from HUD in the 80s of $100,000 to seed a revolving loan fund. And they have a public-private partnership. They have their own board. They make loans of, I think, $1,500 to $15,000. They're smaller loans at 50% of prime to owners of, so private owners of listed buildings or potentially listable buildings, historic buildings, to do replacement, like if you want to restore the windows, maybe there used to be a porch, you want to put the porch back, you have a rotted balustrade, you want to do repointing of your chimney, and it just makes it a little easier for people because not everybody who owns a historic home is rolling in the dough. So I just wanted to get some quick feedback if this struck everybody as something that might be valuable on Nantucket, or if maybe Nantucketers wouldn't be so interested in it. Yes, Georgia.
This is something we debated at the Preservation Trust like 20 years ago, and I have always thought it was a fabulous idea because a lot of people, surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, a lot of people who live in older houses are historic houses, are not necessarily the rich Nantucketers that we think of. They can be people who've had the houses in their families for generations and don't have the wherewithal to go out and spend a lot of money restoring them or keeping them up. And if we had a revolving loan fund of some sort that could help them maintain those houses in more historically correct condition, that would be an extremely valuable thing. At least it was 20 years ago. Maybe in those past 20 years, all those houses have been acquired by wealthy newcomers. Holly would probably know better than I, but I think the need was certainly there then, and I think it probably still is here.
Holly, what do you think?
We're talking about a HUD type of program, or are we just
Well,
talking
no,
about
no, just the idea of a revolving loan fund to make small loans at a low interest rate for enabling preservation of private structures by homeowners.
Yeah.
The money would be paid back, so it's not a
Right.
grant.
I mean, that could be something to strive for. I think one of the biggest things that this commission, as well as our nonprofit partners, MPT, even MMA, really could look at, and even Preservation Mass is the historic tax credits in general. Maybe just that education component to realtors to say, look, there are incentives. Granted, Massachusetts, when it comes to the historic federal tax credit, you have to have an income producing property, and it's rarely used. It's few and far between that it's utilized. I've only been contacted once this past year for property on the island to help support for their application. But it would be nice to be able to have that, because we do realize how many structures on Nantucket are being used from an income perspective, or a rental, somebody that's had, maybe that you're looking at the property owners that have had a piece of property in their family for generations, but for financial reasons have moved off island, don't live here year round, but they rent it out during the summer. There are definitely instances where the historic tax credit through Mass could be beneficial more than what it's utilized. And I would personally like to see that happen. a little
Yeah,
bit
no,
more.
we're
And
definitely
possibly
gonna,
cheap.
Holly,
Yeah.
we're definitely gonna do that. Some kind of course, and we thought to partner with NAREB, the real estate group, and do it. Dawn's advice was, if you do it for credit, you'll get more people showing up. But it is the case that it's all, like you said, it's always going to be a small number of people that can qualify for these tax credits. I mean, even the town doesn't apply for them, and they could get them and resell them. If you're a nonprofit, you can resell the tax credit. So, but this is a different idea. The question is, do you think there are many people on Nantucket who own homes and live in them, or, they don't have to be income producing homes, that are historic, and they're putting off maintenance or restoration projects because they can't afford it?
Yes,
Okay.
I think there are a few of those. Yes.
Right. Okay. So we're not a community development block grant community, as far as I know. So we don't have $100,000 from HUD to seed a revolving loan fund. We can't use CPA funds. I've checked with Ken Bogrand about that. So we would, I think, have to raise money privately for this. And Mary, is this something the trust would like to help set up?
I would have to talk to the board, or at least executive committee, before I could commit to anything.
Of course.
What I would want to see, or, just, I know that Great Barrington does use CPA funds for a similar project, but they require homes to put preservation easements on the properties and then to repay the money when the property is sold. So I suppose, I guess my worry would be that a home is restored, and then what is stopping that homeowner in the future from selling to a developer who treats the house in an insensitive way?
Right. Well, so if I can just respond a couple of things. So I know that the CPA, I did talk with Ken about this, and he checked with the state. So the CPC funds cannot be used for maintenance. So it would only be limited to restoration of historic features. And I think there's a lot of deferred maintenance on these historic structures that make them vulnerable to demolition by neglect. And I also think it just gets complicated if you have two funds and one is for instance. Now, some communities allow private homeowners to use CPC funds, but we are not one of those communities. So private homeowners would be out. So I really think this is a different product, separate from CPC. But the thing is it would be a revolving product. So, it would be self-sustaining. The Arlington Fund has loaned over $1 million since 1985 or something from that original $100,000. So, I don't see us being able to actually, we could host a fund like this. We would need the support of the town to do it. And, they probably wouldn't have time or whatever. But our goal is to see more structures preserved, and to give the whole point of this agenda item, incentives to promote preservation of homes. The idea here is to have a portfolio of offerings. So, you're a business, or you're renting your home, tax credits. We can show you how to do tax credits. You're a homeowner and you really want to do all your windows and restore all your windows, but you can't afford it. here's a loan. You can, there's a loan fund, special loan fund for that. Other things on this are a bank partnership. So I noticed that Cape Cod 5 has a solar fund. And, I haven't spoken with Cape Cod 5 about this. When I did look a little bit at the solar fund for a group I'm involved with that was considering solar, it really felt like a marketing thing to me. Like they wanted to have a way to open a discussion for someone interested in a loan. But why not a historic preservation loan fund that a big bank is offering? I did speak with a developer who's doing a Secretary of Interior rehabilitation restoration. And she said that the financing was really hard for her, that, when you're a contractor and you're borrowing funds to restore one of these structures, they release the funds at certain milestones, and everything is different when it's a really old building and you're restoring it. Like you can't be guaranteed to meet the milestones. So could we develop a partnership with a bank where we it was more sensitive to preservation projects, anything? So this whole area of like incentives to make it easier to say, yes, I'm going to restore this home. Because I think homeowners might say, oh, well, I love this old home, it's so beautiful, I want to restore it. And then they're like, but I can't get a loan, and my contractor doesn't want to do it. They're saying I should just rip everything out. I mean, that happens all the time. So we put down the builders cooperative. But I'm also recognizing, Mary, that this is a lot of the stuff that the trust does. And, we want to support you all. So we want to divide up the work. We want to support you. I know we're over time, so I don't know. Does anybody have any feedback on this? I see Holly's talking. I don't know if you're talking to me, Holly.
No, I was just mentioning, I bet everybody would like to go get some lunch. I know I've got a 1 o'clock meeting. I'd like to get some lunch.
All right, so let's continue this discussion. David and I will continue to work on the tax credits. I have one last announcement before I release class, which is please save the date. This is August 12th at 4 p.m. We will be unveiling the monument commemorating the life of Arthur Cooper and the fantastic events of 1822. We have a partnership with the Museum of African American History. They're organizing the day. COVID permitting, I am hosting a reception, an invitation-only reception in my garden because I want to, but also because I discovered that the owner of my home, Sylvanus Macy, was one of the key people involved with the saving and rescue of Arthur Cooper, which just gives me goosebumps to stand in the foyer, looking out the window and thinking this person did this, standing in this very spot in this very home.
That's fabulous. Oh.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I meant to screen share the monument. I do have a picture of the plaque. It's beautiful. We're putting it on a boulder that we harvested from the neighboring plot of land. So it's like very native, the boulder, no fossil fuels consumed moving this boulder to Nantucket. It's a native boulder. Neil Patterson is going to make the monument. The land bank is our partner. It's such a cool project. We've got the Janet Schulte is helping us plan the event. So please save the date, August 12th at 4 p.m. And I have
one more.
Oh yeah.
Before
Go
we
ahead, Holly.
adjourn, Resilient Nantucket, if you have any edits, comments, concerns on our draft design guidelines, please get them to me by this Monday. If you want to look at the draft, you haven't done so, it is available on the town's website, the Resilient Act, through our resiliency planning page. Your input is helpful. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Holly. And God, that is definitely on my to-do list. So, all right. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Angus.
Second.
Thank you, Georgia. Let's all just say aye. Let's all just say lunch. Lunch, everybody.
Thank you, Hillary.
Aye.
Thank you. Great to see you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.